Story 1. It pains me that Jurassic Park is not near the top of this list. Jurassic Park is perfect because it opened the door to a type of cinema that had not been opened before, only lightly touched. The story is about an island of dinosaurs brought back by believable science. The characters are specific to the plot. A paleontologist, a paleobotanist, a chaostician, a lawyer, and the founder, all together for the purpose of opening the park. The computer-generated imagery made it real. The dinosaurs were not just clunky clay models. They felt real, alive, as if they were on that island. The pure wonder and amazement, the awe of it all, that was the door that opened, and we walked through it and have not been able to even knock on another door since. Story 2. Children of Men. Every part of this movie was designed to be perfectly relatable to the audience, yet dystopian enough to feel believable day to day while also uncomfortably unfamiliar. You get no time to settle into anyone's normal life, as the state of the world is revealed over a coffee run. Terrorist attacks leave you feeling a need to escape, similar to what we see today in our own cities. A familiarity that seems odd until you realize how honest it is. From that point on, you are thrust into a futuristic world that, based on the details, seems only a few years ahead of our current reality. It remains honest and acceptable, presenting the main narrative as truly terrifying. Our human world is dying quickly. What would we do to protect our existence? The quiet intensity of the on-the-run portion of the movie is exquisite. One moment you are sitting and laughing with family, the next you are dodging tank blasts and machine gun fire while traversing an almost post-apocalyptic wasteland of a city. Throughout, you are protecting, at all costs, the most innocent and precious cargo. The film takes you on this journey, both believable and horrific, beautiful in design, yet almost life-draining in despair and hopelessness. You can see that the world, from the top of the food chain to the bottom of the barrel, is scared, aimless, and without a plan for the future. And that is just the narrative. This does not even touch on the absolutely masterful long single-take shots at numerous points in the film that set it apart cinematically, or the environmental set designs that show it in such a large and elaborate state. It is a perfect film to me, both in story and visual presentation. I remember the first time I saw it, getting completely lost in the story and sights, nearly forgetting I was watching a movie, and truly falling in love with every character, even the small supporting roles. Story 3. Hot Fuzz is the funniest movie ever. Every single line is either a setup, a knockdown, or plot advancement. I love this movie. Story 4. The Shawshank Redemption. Everything about it just works. Great pacing, powerful performances, and a story that leaves a lasting impact. Story 5. Mulan, the original. The movie flows effortlessly from start to finish. Pacing is perfect, the plot works from beginning to end, and the musical numbers are great. I never saw the remake and did not need to. Story 6. Spirited Away. The animation, character development, and story are perfect. Story 7. The Fifth Element. Perfectly cast humor with Chris Tucker, the deaf character, Li Lu, and a great story with original plot lines. It is silly, science fiction, and superb. Amazing lighting. Story 8. Back to the Future is perfect in my opinion. It is funny, dramatic, and exciting. It is a time travel movie where the characters and their relationships with others are equally or even more important than the main feature of the DeLorean. Story 9. Airplane. Surely you can't be serious. I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. It's a classic, full of one-liners and non-stop jokes in every scene. Leslie Nielsen was a comedic genius. If you haven't seen the movie, I encourage you to watch it on your next cross-country flight. Story 10. Pulp Fiction. You can watch it over and over, and it is still entertaining from start to finish. Story 11. Back to the Future has the most well-written script, in my opinion. Every line is necessary, and the jokes are extremely effective. Story 12. The Emperor's New Groove is a perfect story with excellent storytelling, balancing comedy, drama, and character development. It features a great soundtrack with very talented musicians and perfect casting. It is one of the few movies where every vocal actor could portray their character in live action. Additionally, the credits include a song written by Sting. Story 13, The Sting. Not just for the superb period set design, not just for the extraordinary twist and turn plot with a genuine surprise at the end, not just for the outstanding lead acting from the trio of Newman, Redford, and Shaw, but if for anything, the deep cast of the most memorable and accomplished character actors playing minor parts throughout. Every performance was a tour de force. Story 14. I once heard it said that if Die Hard did not exist, they would need to create it just to show every other movie what they are doing wrong. Story 15. Rear Window. I have seen it more times than I can count, and yet it still fills me with suspense. Story 16. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a flawless film from front to back. It is my pick for the best action movie ever made. What makes it work so well is not just that it is a great, well-paced action movie with fantastic set pieces, incredible acting, and a first-rate story, but also that it has a whole second movie wedged in between the action scenes, namely the formula romance between Indiana Jones and Marion, with the boy gets girl story implied by their backstory. Story 17. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Infinitely rewatchable and highly entertaining. Perfect pacing and storytelling. Great practical effects and real stunts. Humor. Great original story. Fun, interesting characters. Excellent cinematography and action sequences. Perfect soundtrack by John Williams. Han Solo combined with James Bond cannot be beat. Story 18. Shutter Island. Every time I watch this, I always find more clues to the ending. It is so good. Story 19. Blade Runner. I just love every aspect of this film. Story 20. Lawrence of Arabia is exceptionally well done from start to finish. Story 21. Chinatown. The script is perfect. Not a wasted shot or word of dialogue. Everything connects in this brilliant deconstruction of the hard-boiled detective genre. Story 22. WALL-E is a masterpiece of storytelling. It takes pure art to involve audiences emotionally, without narration or dialogue, in a love story between two machines. The unlikely choice of a 1960s musical as the soundtrack is inspired, and it is meticulously loaded with hilarious visual gags and smart pop culture references. The social and political themes of consumerism, environmentalism, and the human spirit never feel preachy because this little gem of a film earns every single moment. WALL-E was never a kid's movie. It is just a grown-up movie kids can watch. Story 23. Terminator 2 is the best and most perfect action film ever made. Story 24. No Country for Old Men takes a great book and turns it into the perfect movie. Not all books are translated so well. The acting, directing, and writing are perfect in this movie. Story 25. Leon, the Professional. From start to finish, it is an action masterpiece. Story 26. Schindler's List. Every frame is incredible, with superb acting, cinematography, set design, and sound. The subject matter is harrowing, and under lesser directors, there would be much more gore and violence, which would ruin it. Steven Spielberg directs it almost deadpan, and in that way, what we see is incredibly moving and powerful. I watch this film at least twice a year, and it still amazes me to this day. Story 27. Ghostbusters, the original, stars Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Rick Moranis. Legendary comedians in their prime. The script is completely original with great special effects and truly hilarious moments. Many of the best lines were improvised. The film also features Ernie Hudson, Sigourney Weaver, Annie Potts, and one of the best villains of the 1980s, William Atherton. It was truly lightning in a bottle. Attempts to replicate it will never match the original. Story 28. Heat. Perfect casting, pace, story, action, cinematography. 3-hour movie that does not feel like one. Story 29. Last of the Mohicans. It is everything. A love story, historical fiction, war movie, and great soundtrack. Daniel Day-Lewis completely immersed himself in the role. The movie does not shy away from the brutality of pre-revolutionary America. Story 30. Godfather Part 1. Edit. It is timeless. Every scene is art. It has it all. Story 31. Coraline. The attention to detail in that movie is incredible. Story 32. As a comedy, every line in Napoleon Dynamite is written and delivered in a manner that makes it memorable and quotable. There is not a single line of dialogue that is wasted. Many people do not like that movie because it has a specific kind of humor, but you can still appreciate that the dialogue writing is genius. Dumb and Dumber is almost the same regarding dialogue, but not quite. That said, Dumb and Dumber is still my favorite comedy. Story 33. Seven Samurai. 3.5 hours of perfect storytelling. Story 34. Children of Men. Every choice was deliberate and meticulous. The whole world feels real. Though it is beautiful, nothing feels artificial. It is a masterclass in subtlety. Story 35. The Life Aquatic. The amount of effort that went into that film, including acting, writing, music, and stop motion, creates a breathtaking experience of laughing and crying. Story 36. Cool Runnings. I cannot explain it. If that movie ever came on, regardless of where it was, I was going to finish it. It was funny when it needed to be. It was serious when necessary. Even if you have seen it a million times, you still root for them like your life depends on it. Story 37. Back to the Future. All lean meat. Great characters, great plot, great music. Funny, heartwarming, exciting, dramatic. It is the Princess Bride of science fiction. Story 38. No Country for Old Men. Just a practice in craft. Perfect combination of writing, directing, and acting. Story 39. A buddy of mine in college used to evaluate movies based on categorical criteria. Casting. Are the actors so well suited to their roles that you forget they are famous actors? Costumes. Do the costumes enhance the understanding of the characters or plot? Are there moments that surprise you but still make total sense in terms of character motivation and without plot holes? Dialogue. Are there multiple memorable and specific lines? Soundtrack. Is the music not just good but inseparable from certain shots or moments in your mind? Cinematography. Are there shots that are iconic or so creative and well-conceived that you notice them even on the first watch? Our standards were Goodfellas and The Shawshank Redemption for hitting every category. Story 40, Tremors 1 or Blazing Saddles. Both are wonderfully cast, and I could watch them forever. Story 41. Lord of the Rings is quite possibly the greatest movie ever created. The theatrical cut is fine. Other notable movies include Boys in the Hood and Black Hawk Down. Story 42. The Dark Knight is a perfect superhero movie without superpowers. I like the message. I love the Joker and Harvey Dent. They are well written. It is not black and white like every other superhero movie. Story 43. Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. It is beautiful and unlike any other movie. Story 44. The Great Escape. Story cast just a fantastic film. Story 45. The Prince of Egypt. The animation is stunning, the songs are amazing, and the story is captivating even if you are not religious. Story 46. Galaxy Quest is one of the most perfect movies I adore. Young Frankenstein is probably my favorite comedy. Toy Story, Lord of the Rings, Casablanca, and The Wizard of Oz are also on my huge list. Story 47. Sicario. Now hear me out. It is probably one of the best dark action films from start to finish. Story 48. Get Out and Everything Everywhere All at Once. They are my top favorites for a reason. Story 49. Rogue One. A Star Wars story. Perfectly made, fits seamlessly before the original trilogy. By far the best Star Wars film ever made. The ending is completely fantastic in every way. Story 50. Arrival. Incredible cinematography, beautifully paced and acted, and is a really thoughtful science fiction film. Also, The Prince of Egypt is just an incredible piece of animation. I really do not know how else to describe it. Just watch it. Story 51. Toy Story 3. The characters, pacing, plot, and ending were all perfect. Story 52. Puss in Boots. The Last Wish. From the charismatic characters, the action scenes, the animation, the themes they deal with, and not forgetting that it is made for the whole family, this is one of the best movies for me. Story 53. The Shawshank Redemption has an excellent plot, character development, and a huge payoff at the end. I try to watch it at least once per year. Story 54. Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa is a masterclass in film creation. Story 55. Two movies for me, both directed by Michael Mann, Collateral and Heat. Story 56. Heat, 1995. Drama, realistic action, plenty of plot and characters, and a stunning cast from top to bottom. Michael Mann's career took off after that. It is the exception that makes the rule because no one has been able to repeat it, and only Mann has come close. Story 57. Trading Places. Excellent story, acting, laughs, and endlessly quotable. Story 58. Dr. Strangelove. As a youngster, it was the first film I saw with that kind of handheld photography. I had watched 100 war movies on television up until then. During the assault on the airbase, I felt I was there, even just watching on television. Oh, then there is the funny part too. Story 59. Alien is widely considered the best horror film of all time for a reason. Story 60. Some Like It Hot. I love it when they have the party on the train. Story 61. The Princess Bride. Alien. The Usual Suspects. The Shawshank Redemption. Young Frankenstein. Story 62. Shrek. Everything about it is perfect. Perfect plot. Perfect jokes. Perfect setting. Perfect animation. Perfect characters. Perfect voice actors. Perfect music selection. Perfect character development. Story 63. Dune Part 2. I know it is a more recent movie, but I really think it is going to be one of the top movies of this decade. Story 64. Stranger Than Fiction. It is a really well-crafted film with excellent pacing, fantastic acting, and a lovely story. Story 65. The Godfather. Acting, storyline, and music all came together to create a perfect movie with no filler. Story 66. Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Easily Taika Waititi's best movie. Story 67. Like Water for Chocolate is a Mexican movie from the 1990s. It has a good balance of action, romance, and politics. I like that it has an ambiguous ending too. Story 68. Goodfellas. Cast, cinematography, script, directing. Story 69. Destry Rides Again, 1939. Perfect casting, excellent script, and outstanding directing. 10 out of 10. Story 70. Interstellar. Every second of that movie is flawless. Best score of all time. I listen to it every single day. I have seen Hans Zimmer live twice just so I could hear it. Story 71. I really like Out of Africa. It has mixed reviews and I understand the criticisms, but an epic story and amazing cinematography are the sweet spot for me. Story 72. The Iron Giant is constructed in a way that evokes nostalgia and blends with science fiction elements. Story 73. A Man for All Seasons, 1966. Spectacular script and acting, weighty and timely subject matter without being pompous. A movie that makes you think about what you are prepared to do for principle when the costs are extreme. Story 74. I think one of the most underrated Christmas movies is The Family Man with Nicolas Cage and T. Leone. Perfection. Story 75. Heat to me is the perfect movie. Every actor delivers a great performance. It is not too long and features plenty of action and suspense. The soundtrack is perfect with no wasted dialogue. The colors and lighting create a unique atmosphere. I always recommend this film to people who have surround sound systems, as it enhances the experience, especially during the main heist. Story 76. The Count of Monte Cristo, 2002. It is not a perfect adaptation of the book, but it is still one of the best movies I have ever seen. An epic tale of suffering and revenge. Story 77. Children of Men. I was completely captivated by the plot. The acting and cinematography were excellent. Story 78. Baby Driver, The Green Mile, The Shawshank Redemption, and Inglourious Bastard are movies I can watch repeatedly without getting bored. Story 79. Crazy Stupid Love is the most perfect romantic comedy feel-good movie. I especially love the shirtless scene of Ryan Reynolds. Story 80. Keeping with the theme of Luc Besson and Gary Oldman, Lyon the Professional. Fantastic film with great storytelling and well-developed characters. Story 81. Airplane. It is the funniest movie ever made. I can prove it. Story 82. Jurassic Park. Just a really good, tight script in my opinion, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex scene is perfect. Story 83. There Will Be Blood. Storytelling, cinematography, soundtrack, and acting performances are all brilliant. A masterpiece. Story 84. Independence Day, and I Will Not Be Swayed. It literally has everything. Story 85. Over 400 comments and no one mentions Infinity War or Endgame. These films wrapped up 21 movies into an epic ending that tied up the stories of 80 characters. It was a masterpiece of storytelling that will never be matched. Look past the superhero backdrop and consider how they were able to bring together an interwoven group of characters across different genres of movies. Nothing will ever achieve what they did. Story 86. They Live. Incredible plot, ridiculous fight scene, and it contributed so much to popular culture that you would recognize a reference to it even if you have not seen the film. Story 87. There are many, but I will name a few that I think are almost peak cinema. The Princess Bride. It has science fiction, fantasy, comedy, drama, and the cast to match. The Godfather, much better than the book, intense due to its unpredictable plot. Signs. Beautifully shot, highly suspenseful, with a great script. Story 88. I have 10 perfect 10 scores. These are not necessarily my 10 favorite movies, but I think they are the 10 that ended up perfect. Jackie Brown. Amelie. Spirited Away. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Kung Fu Hustle. The Empire Strikes Back. The Big Lebowski. Little Shop of Horrors. Enemy at the Gates. It should be very easy to guess my age within a 5-year margin. Story 89. Amadeus is a fictitious version of Mozart's life, but every scene is a work of art. The extended version might even be better. The casting, acting, setting filmed in Prague, the costuming, the dynamic between Mozart and Salieri, and the exploration of jealousy and how genius manifests are all done flawlessly with liberal doses of Mozart's music. Mozart is not one of my favorite composers, but this is one of my favorite films, and I have lost count of how many times I have seen it. Story 90. Unforgiven and Open Range might be the tightest westerns ever made. Different pacing and stories, but each part flows smoothly into the next. Story 91. Curse of the Black Pearl. Pirates of the Caribbean as a franchise may have declined, but the first film as a standalone story is fantastic. It is witty, funny, and knows when to be campy and when to be serious. The characters are fun. Jack Sparrow is well placed as a supporting role. The characters all have believable and enjoyable chemistry. Jack and Barbossa especially are a joy to watch. They truly feel like characters with history based on how they talk and act around each other. The action is engaging, and the final fight, with characters switching between undead and alive forms, is very entertaining. The special effects were masterful for the time. There are a few minor nitpicks, but overall it is a perfect film in my opinion. The flaws are so small they can easily be overlooked. Story 92. Dread. It understands what it is. A hyper-violent dystopic world and a lawgiver going about his workday with ruthless efficiency. No character development, no hidden motives, no redemption arcs, no romance, no actor ego. Just Monday for Dread to an epic soundtrack. We all might have loved Deadpool and Wolverine, but how many rewatches before every cameo and twist gets tired? Dread never stops being rewatchable. Story 93. Pulp Fiction. Not many people manage to pull off this type of storytelling. Story 94. Rocky. The original Rocky movie is one of the best films ever made. Story 95. Galaxy Quest. It hits all the right notes of parody and heart. The premise is well executed in regard to the content it is parodying, but it also dives deep into what makes that content so well loved and respected by many people. It is a true masterpiece of writing, acting, casting, cheesiness, emotional moments, and everything. Even in moments with clear errors like, well, screw that, it adds an entire meta level of humor to the whole thing. There is so much love for Galaxy Quest, and it accomplishes exactly what it set out to do and more. Story 96. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. A beautifully written book, among John le Carre's best, was condensed into this tight spy mystery. The cast was top-notch. Colin Firth, Gary Oldman, Mark Strong, Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Hardy. Story 97. Memento is perfect. How else can you tell a story in reverse and not give anything away? Story 98. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is perfect from start to finish, and the soundtrack is one of the best ever written for film. Story 99. Grave of the Fireflies perfectly depicted the situation for people in Japan during the war. Story 100. Mad Max Fury Road. No notes. It is perfection. Reasons why. Original and deep story, human empowerment story. Amazing villains, music and soundtracks. Best and most horrible twist. Acting 10 out of 10. The world building is incredible. That movie transports you there while making the main characters terribly relatable and making you feel for them. Story 101. The Prestige. Oh my God. Groundhog Day. All of these deliver complete justice to their genre and have been made with utmost commitment to the themes. Story 102. Die Hard still stands as the best Christmas movie. Story 103. Hot Fuzz. Everything matters and works perfectly throughout the movie. Story 104. The Pirates of the Caribbean. The first one. I have never seen any others, so I cannot talk about them. But that first one was genius. Story 105. The Goonies has it all. Adventure, comedy, romance, a car chase, pirates, and more. It also has that lovely 1980s nostalgic glow. Perfect score, perfect direction. A classic. Story 106. Surf Ninjas. It really holds up. No problems whatsoever. Story 107. There Will Be Blood. From start to finish, it is a masterpiece. Story 108. Drama The Departed. Horror The Exorcist. Comedy Basketball. Story 109. Way Out West Laurel and Hardy. Impossible Not to Love It. Story 110. Glory. I have watched that movie over 100 times, and I cannot think of a single scene that is wasted. Story 111. Soul from Pixar would have been the best, but that character arc is just awful. Story 112. Aliens is a perfect blend of memorable characters and impending doom. Story 113. Hot Fuzz. Great cast, dialogue flows, it is tight and very rewatchable. Story 114. Sicario. Great locations, photography by Roger Deakins, and direction. Story 115. Local Hero. It's so mellow, like a comfortable blanket, punctuated only 3 times by sounds that needed to be loud to create contrast. It's beautiful. Story 116. Alien. It is not as scary now because many elements of that movie have been included in all the suspense movies that came after. Story 117. Fatal Attraction and No Country for Old Men feature sublime acting. Story 118. The original Lion King funny and feel-good while also addressing serious parts of life and death. Love all the different characters with their own personalities. American Psycho. The contradiction between this insanely disciplined, successful businessman and the completely loose psycho, amazingly portrayed by Christian Bale. Titanic. So many iconic moments. The chemistry between Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, the first scene in which we're introduced to the two, the drawing scene, the hand-on-window scene, the dancing scene, the scene of the 2 old people in bed, the moment the 2 guys realize there's an iceberg, the scenes when the boat is really starting to sink. People stuck behind gates, the ice falling on the deck, the water bursting in, the boat breaking in half. The costumes, the actors, the decor, the graphics, and the music, just perfect. Story 119. I haven't seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse mentioned yet. I don't like comic book movies. I'm not a big fan of animated films. That movie is incredible. The animation was like nothing I had seen before. The color schemes and art were the best. The voice acting was some of the best I have seen. And the soundtrack was phenomenal. From start to finish, it is one of the best films I have seen. Story 120, The Seventh Seal. I could argue, but really, everything feels just in the right place. I can't point to one thing, it just makes sense as a whole. Story 121. The Hangover, I don't even need to explain why. It is simply the most perfect movie known to mankind. Story 122. Titanic is a masterpiece. It is 2 hours and 40 minutes long, which is the same time it took the ship to sink. The film is historically accurate, from clothing and accents to many of the real-life characters and their stories from that night. The attention to detail is impeccable. It manages to maintain emotional impact without seeming distasteful. The film was rightly given many accolades when it was first released. Although this initially irritated some people and led to it becoming a joke for many years, it is now once again receiving the respect it deserves. Story 123. I think The Thing is the best for me. Also, the first Spider-Verse movie, but I'm sure that's already been mentioned. With The Thing, you get to detective who is infected and at what point they get infected. No one in the movie is infected without clues to their infection. The movie never tells you who the first person to get infected is, but you can figure it out. Even after watching the movie, you can continue to digest it and think about it. I watched it again recently and learned something new. At the end of the movie, Childs is actually infected because he doesn't exhale fog like Mac does, implying that he isn't really breathing and is just mimicking Childs. You can then deduce that Mac definitely dies at the end, too. The movie doesn't tell you the ending, but all the clues are there to figure it out. It's a literal movie puzzle. It's great. It's insane to me that the movie flopped upon release. Story 124. Star Wars Episode 4. Perfect soundtrack. Impressive special effects for the time. Hero's journey. Just magic in the cinema. Some line readings are weak, but the movie is basically perfect as a Flash Gordon knockoff, and it inspired decades of blockbuster movies. The Prestige. The entire movie is one giant misdirection. Very entertaining. Mulholland Drive. Probably a controversial choice, but it is perfectly weird and engaging. I can watch it repeatedly, and it all makes sense to me at least. Tim Burton's Ed Wood, I do not know why, but a well-made movie parodying a terrible director is one of the best things I have ever seen. Walter Matthau is excellent as Bela Lugosi, and Johnny Depp is fun to watch. Story 125. About Time. It has the most flawlessly written script I have heard. Not one line is out of place. The story is phenomenal. Just when you think it is only a fun little romance film, it becomes much more. It depicts dating, marriage, family issues, heartbreak, death of a loved one, abuse, trauma, and more. It is the most perfect film ever made, in my opinion. Story 126. Everything Everywhere All at Once. I just watched it a few weeks ago and have not been able to stop thinking about it since. Story 127. Simplistic fade handle tub encouraging aspiring grandiose mysterious scale cause. Story 128. The original Old Boy from Korea is a masterpiece. It is part of the Revenge trilogy. I Saw the Devil is pure brilliance, and Bedeviled is a splatterfest of magnificent wonder. Story 129. Inception has a super interesting idea about heists, a great cast, and an intriguing plot. The love story breaks my heart every time. You said we would grow old together. We did, Mal. We did. Story 130. First Blood. It was originally quite different until Sylvester Stallone had his character's dialogue stripped down to almost nothing, which transformed the story. Story 131. Scream 5 was done pretty well. You did not know who the killers were until the end, and you were meant to be shocked. My underrated pick would be The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It is a beautiful movie. Story 132. Austin Powers is fun, light, and quirky entertainment for an hour and a half with no unnecessary content. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.